Reef DVM is here with our homemade cherry pie. As you can see, we've got our ingredients laid out here that we're going to use. We're going to start here by grinding our own flour for our pie crust from organic wheat berries that we buy. We are going to be deep hitting these cherries since these are large sweet cherries. Otherwise, you can use your tart cherries. They work just as well in this recipe. We're going to deep hit the cherries with a hand deep hitter. We use a hand deep hitter just because we don't do a lot of these cherries every year, so it works quite well for this purpose. We're also going to be cutting our cherries in half before we put them in the pie, just so we have a bit more bite-sized pieces to eat. And we're going to use 4 cups of our cherries. Now, after we get all of our flour ground, we're going to make our pie crust. We do make a oil-based pie crust, which is a little different for most people. So we start with 2 cups of flour. We add our half a cup of oil, and we are using avocado oil since we think it's a little healthier than other oils and doesn't have quite the flavor that olive oil can bring to a pie crust. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of water and just a dash of salt. Now, the neat thing about an oil-based pie crust is that even a small child can mix this up. The shortening-based pie crust, you have to really cut in that shortening. It can get a little bit stiff for little hands to do. But in this case, she can mix it up quite well, as we also prepare our other ingredients for our pie in the background. And while we are getting our other sugar and such to go in with the cherries are cooking on the stovetop right now, just on low, just kind of simmering, getting the juices to come out of the cherries. Now we're going to add a little bit of flour, a little bit of oil to our pie crust until we can get it to the perfect consistency. We want it just a little oily, but nice and able to be made into a ball. But we don't want it too oily where the oil is just kind of dripping off of it. So we're just going to keep adding oil and flour until we get that right. And we're going to get the sugar and cornstarch ready. So this is a very simple recipe. There isn't a lot in there with the cherries, just really the sugar and cornstarch. You can also add 1/8 of a teaspoon of almond extract if you like that kind of flavor. So as we get our pie crust going, we're going to get our cornstarch and sugar mixed together really well. We find that if we do this, then we don't have any cornstarch lumps in our cherry filling, and we get a nice thick cherry filling. Then we just mix it in with the sugar here. We're going to use 1 cup of sugar for the sweeter cherries and up to 1.5 cups of sugar for our tart cherries. Now we've got our pie crust ready. We're going to make it into a nice ball. I use about half of this crust recipe makes a top and a bottom, so I use half of it for the bottom and half of it for the top. I put it in between 2 sheets of wax paper. And we're also going to add our sugar at the same time to our cherry mixture that has been cooking. And you can see how nicely that the sugar and the cornstarch mix right in without any lumps or anything because we mixed the sugar and cornstarch previously together. And once we get that all mixed in, it also is going to keep sitting on the stovetop on low, just mixing it occasionally to really get it thick. And once it is thick, we're going to put it in the refrigerator to start cooling down and gelling before we actually put it in the oven. I'm going to roll out the pie crust in between these 2 sheets of wax paper. The best part of this with our oil-based pie crust is that it never sticks to your rolling pin. Of course, you can't get it any bigger than 2 sheets of wax paper, but the pies that I make are smaller than that, so it works out great for this type of situation. And just kind of feather it out to the edge. You can obviously make it as thick or as thin as you want, depending on the size of your pie and your preference. I always like to check it against my pie pan too, just to make sure that I have gotten it big enough all the way around. You want to make sure that you have enough around the edges so that you can make your nice crust and they can come together. Now this kind of pie crust is a little bit more fragile, so you're going to just very gently shape it into the bottom of the pie pan. We've got our chilled filling that's nice and thick. After we pour it in, we're going to add the top crust that we have previously rolled out. Remember, you get one shot at this, so you got to make sure you get it right when you put that pie crust on. So now we're just going to peel off the extra amounts here around the edge. You can use a knife too if you want. And then I just like to pinch it straight. I don't do anything fancy sideways. Seems to work out well. People seem to still eat the pies, so it's a lot easier for me to do. There's our finished pie with a little bit of sugar on top for decoration. We're going to put that in the oven at 375 for 50 minutes. Make sure everything gets, warmed up and cooked all the way through and get that pie crust cooked. And now we have our hot and bubbly cherry pie ready to eat. Hope you can also enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Please like or subscribe to show support for our channel.